Before we start, go ahead and hit that like button if you're settling in with me tonight. And while you're at it, maybe subscribe if you want to keep these quiet moments going. Now, where are you listening from right now? What time is it where you are? I'm curious. Because here, it's just past midnight. The rain taps softly against the side window, a steady rhythm that somehow makes the dark feel less empty. You're in a small cabin, tucked away where the streetlights fade into distant patches of darkness. The kind of place where even the neighbors feel like ghosts, spread out and far enough not to blur the edges of your solitude. The air inside carries a faint scent of damp wood and a hint of mustiness from last week's storm, drying too slowly in the colder night air. You stretch a little, feeling the coolness crawl over your skin beneath the thin blanket, and turn your attention toward the bathroom door down the narrow hall. That door has been closed for some time. You remember locking it earlier before drifting off, the kind of habit you picked up from movies and small late-night cautions. But now, you're almost sure you heard something. A soft, almost hesitant scrape of footsteps, like little taps, just past that door. Not urgent, but deliberate. You pause to listen, your breath steady, despite the prickle of unease that creeps along your spine. The rain outside barely changes, still tapping with that gentle insistence. Inside, the wooden floor creaks faintly as you push yourself up from the chair. The quiet is thick enough to make every small noise leap into focus. A distant drip from a leaky gutter, the scrape of a branch brushing the window, the subtle thump of your heartbeat syncing with the room's hush. You inch closer to the door, eyes adjusting to the dim light spilling from the hallway lamp. Planting your hand gently on the cold brass doorknob, your fingers pause midair. A faint shuffle echoes again, short, barely audible. You press your ear against the cool wood and catch the faintest scrape again, just beyond the door, near, or perhaps behind the bathroom. Your mind sifts through possibilities. The wind shifting the loose shingle outside? A stray animal trapped somewhere near the cabin's base? But then, footsteps wouldn't sound quite like that, would they? They come in soft beats, irregular but intentional. Like someone's careful, slow steps moving past, but staying just out of sight. You reach for your phone on the bedside table, screen lighting up the room with soft blue, checking the time. 12:16 a.m. Cell reception is weak here, but you try calling the local emergency number just in case. The call doesn't connect. Signal drops out almost immediately. You feel the weight of isolation more sharply now, the subtle crackle of rain through the window pane, mixing with your shallow breaths. You step back quietly and listen again. The footsteps have stopped. Silence falls alongside the rain, thickening. Then, just as you begin to relax, a slow, soft creak comes from the attic hatch above you. 3 boards loose, dusty, groaning under a weight moving gently across the floor above. The cabin's temperature seems to dip an extra notch, the humid air turning colder around your shoulders. You glance at the faint orange glow of the porch light visible through the rain-streaked window, realizing the screen door's latch might be slightly askew, though you could swear you locked it twice. Your eyes flick back to the bathroom door and the ceiling hatch. You consider checking the attic, flashlight in hand, or maybe stepping outside under the umbrella to see if anyone's around the back porch. But the rain sounds too steady, too wrapped around the house for you to take that risk just yet. Instead, you settle back down slowly, the blanket wrapping around the chill, and your senses tightening. The quiet is full of possibility. If you're settling in right now, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, where you are. Because here, it's 3:17 in the morning. The rain is falling harder now, heavier drops tapping a sharp rhythm against the wooden siding of the cabin. The smell of wet earth and cold wood slips through the slightly cracked window, filling the air with that clear, fresh scent you only get when a storm passes over thick forest. You're standing at the front door now, sleeves damp from the drizzle that drifts in every time the wind shifts. The hallway light behind you stretches shadows across the floor, including the door itself, plain, old wood with paint chipping at the edges. Just above the handle, the peephole stares back at you like a tiny, unblinking eye. You hesitate for a moment, fingers brushing the door, heart steady but alert. The quiet hum of the rain is broken by a soft creak somewhere down the hall, almost like the house settling, but different, intentional. Wary, you crouch down to eye level with the peephole. Outside, the porch light flickers in the storm, throwing brief pulses of orange-yellow onto the slick boards. The rain spills in sheets now, making the trees sway and shush. You lean in close, the metal cool against your cheek, and peer through. Just a blurred shape at first, dark forms shifting in the wet night beyond the porch. But then, movement. A figure lingering near the side of the cabin, just out of reach of the light. Not rushing, just waiting. Your breath catches. You pull back, blinking into the dim hallway. You check your phone. Screen lighting up stark in the dark. 3:17 a.m. No signal. You pinch the screen, double-checking the emergency number, but the call won't go through here. The rain hits harder, louder. Thunder rumbles faintly in the distance, like a warning and a countdown all in one. Instinct pulls you back to the door, your hand moving automatically to test the locks. Deadbolt turns smoothly. You flick the chain into place, hearing the soft click. You're secure, but the air feels heavier now, colder around your neck and wrists where your skin is exposed. The faint drip of water from the eaves drops onto the porch boards, keeping a steady time as your ears strain against the storm. A scrape at the back door makes you jump. You didn't hear any footsteps on the porch, yet something shifted. You move quietly to that door, your shoes silent against the cool, damp floor. Your hand shakes a little as you peer out the tiny window inset into the doorframe. Nothing but darkness and rain-soaked ground, muddied and freshly trampled. You spot a footprint, deep and clumsy, in the soft earth just beyond the threshold. Not quite human, not quite animal, or maybe just dirt caught in an odd shape. You step back, breathing slow but aware. For a moment, the rain and thunder drown out everything. Then, near silence again. Only the pulse of the storm and the distant flicker of a lone car's taillight somewhere down the empty road. The neighbor's house is dark, no sign of life for miles. You wonder how many nights have passed in this rhythm, expecting nothing, waiting for something. How easy it is to let the mind fill empty spaces, and how heavy the weight of quiet can be. The peephole stares still, and beyond it, the storm is real. But what else moves in the quiet corners of this place, unseen? Are you watching, or are you being watched? If you're here now, before we start, take a moment to tap, like if this quiet, rain-soaked night feels like the kind you want to linger in. Maybe subscribe so these soft, shadowed moments find you again. Where are you listening from? And what hour has folded around you? Here, it's just past 3:30 a.m., and the rain is a slow, steady drum against the side window. Soft, persistent. The smell of soaked earth and pine presses close, thick and familiar. You're in the kitchen when you notice it. The glow of a light burning faintly upstairs. The house is supposed to be dark. There's comfort in that. A signal that sleep has settled all its inhabitants. But not tonight. Up there, through the narrow hall's opening, a warm amber light spills from beneath the attic door. Unmistakable. Steady. You hadn't left it on, had you? The house's quiet holds a new weight under that soft illumination. A chill brushes your skin as you move toward the old stairwell, joints creaking soft but certain under your careful steps. The air changes subtly, cooler, mustier, like settling dust disturbed after long stillness. You pause, hand lingering on the banister, The faint scent of rain balancing with a faint tang of old paper, old wood, and something else harder to place. Your gaze lifts toward the attic hatch, half open, bathed in that low glow. No breeze should reach this far inside, but you feel it. A faint draft, tugging like a whisper through the cracked edges. You check your phone, the screen lighting your hand with pale blue. 3:32 a.m. No calls, no messages, no signal bars. The kind of silence that isn't quite quiet, but something else. You step up slowly, floorboards creaking underfoot, the steady rhythm of rain thrumming faintly through the roof. The attic stairs groan as you reach the landing, your breath shallow now, tethered tightly between caution and curiosity. A sound, a scrape, soft and barely there, comes from inside the attic. Your hand moves instinctively to the flashlight in your pocket. Switching it on, you push the hatch fully open. The warm light now mixes with your beam, shadows dancing along exposed beams and scattered boxes. Dust motes float in the air, catching both lights, drifting like tiny drifting ghosts. The attic feels enormous and empty, like a cavern carved out of memories. A loose floorboard shifts beneath your step. Somewhere distant, rain intensifies, slapping the roof with sudden quickness. You sweep the flashlight beam across a stack of old crates, faded newspapers, and a book left half open. No footprints, no sign of recent visitors, only the soft echo of night and rain. You lower the light, heart pacing steady, and close the hatch with a gentle click, latching it firmly. The amber glow above fades with the draw of your hand on the switch. The house exhales, settling back into itself. Returning downstairs, the kitchen feels warmer, softer, wrapped in the quiet rhythm of rain. You pause by the window again, watching water drip from the eaves, wondering how easy it is to feel watched when everyone you expect to see has gone silent. The house keeps its secrets between rain spatter and shadows, and you wonder, when the light burns on where no one should be, what is waiting just beyond the edge of sleep to fill the quiet? If you're listening now, take a second to tap like and maybe subscribe so these quiet corners of night stay close. I wonder where you are and what hour is greeting you. Here, it's pushing 4:15 a.m. The rain a steady curtain against the cabin's windows. The smell of soaked pine needles, wet earth, and distant smoke drifts faintly, mixing into the chill that clings to your skin. You're seated at the small kitchen table, the lamp casting a warm pool of light over scattered papers and a half-empty cup of coffee gone cold. The steady drizzle outside forms a pressing rhythm, a muted symphony that holds the room in its embrace. Your phone lies face up nearby, its screen dark against the wood surface. A soft vibration breaks the night's stillness. A call. You pick up, fingers trembling slightly, bringing the phone close. The caller ID is blocked. You press accept, waiting, but all that fills the silence is faint static at first. Then, almost imperceptible, a quiet voice flickers through, soft, hesitant. No words, just a breath, a faint rustling, like dry leaves disturbed. The rain's tapping grows louder beyond the window, matching the quickening flip of your heartbeat. You swallow, trying to steady your breath. The voice returns, more certain, whispering in a low murmur that seems almost too faint to catch. You hold the phone steadier against your ear, listening for meaning in the breathy sounds. It feels raw, as if someone's speaking from a place wrapped in shadows and distance, more urgent than clear. You glance at the door, drawn by a sudden creak from the hallway. The house exhales, wood settling, rain's muted drum. Nothing else. Your fingers press the red button, ready to end the call if the voice breaks or fades. But it lingers. Like a fragile thread, tethered to somewhere far beyond the cabin's walls. You check the phone screen. 4:16 a.m. No signal bars, fading again like the presence on the line. You try to dial emergency services, but the call won't connect. The rain thickens outside, tracing ribbons down fogged glass. You set the phone down softly, the kitchen's warmth suddenly thin. A memory unfolds, words mouthed beneath breathless tension, the sort you hear when minutes stretch like hours. How many times have you waited for something to speak back, in this kind of silence, in this kind of night? The kind where home feels both refuge and holding space for all that's unanswered. The quiet between drops becomes a question. When a voice comes from nowhere and everywhere at once, is it a call for help or a reminder that you're not quite alone in the lingering dark? And if you listen closely enough, who or what might be waiting to speak? If you're settling in now, go ahead and tap like and maybe subscribe. These quiet nights and rain-drenched hours are moments worth returning to. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Here, it's just past midnight, and the rain has softened to a steady, close patter against the side window. The scent of wet asphalt and damp leaves fills the air, cool and sharp as the night presses in around the cabin. You sit by the window, fingers wrapped around a warm mug, the steam brushing your skin lightly before rising into the chill air. Outside, the road glistens under the dull glare of a flickering street lamp that hums softly, casting long shadows across empty pavement. The forest right beyond is dark and quiet, except for the soft tapping of rain dripping from branch to branch. You breathe in, the smell of rain mixing with the faint musk of pine needles and cold earth, comfort and isolation tangled in the same breath. A distant rumble of thunder rolls quietly, almost hesitant, somewhere far beyond the hills. You glance at your phone. The screen glows dimly. 12:03 a.m. No messages. No missed calls. The signal, as usual, is weak. You're miles from the nearest town, the kind of place where the roads go dark late, and the only company for miles is wind and wet silence. Then, the sound, a low, distant rumble that rises steadily. Closer now. The faint, unmistakable growl of an engine cutting through the night. You peer through the rain-streaked window and see headlights approaching from the curve of the road up ahead. A bus, old and tired-looking, splashes through puddles, moving at a careful crawl. Its windows are fogged over, passengers indistinct behind droplets sliding down glass. You watch as the bus rounds the bend and slows, pulling up to the cluttered stop near the cabin. The side of the road cluttered with overgrown grass and fallen leaves. The engine idles. The rain patters harder now, sharper against the metal. You notice that the bus's lights don't fully illuminate the road ahead, as if its beams hesitate, swallowed by the thick blanket of mist creeping from the trees. Minutes stretch on, the rain's rhythm slipping between splashes and near silence. The bus door's worn hinges creak softly as it opens, but no footsteps come from the empty vehicle. You lean closer, watching the empty seats, the vacant rows bleeding into shadow. A part of you wonders, was this the last bus? The one that travels a road only once a night, carrying secrets you're not meant to see? You shift back, the warmth of your mug no longer comforting but distant. The rain's quiet returns, wrapped in a weight that feels heavier now, as if the night itself holds its breath, waiting. How many times has this road carried echoes of forgotten travelers, passengers unseen but never quite gone? And as you watch the taillights vanish, swallowed whole by fog, you ask yourself, in the silence between stops, who is truly left behind when the last bus goes by? If you're here with me now, go ahead and tap like if you haven't yet, maybe subscribe so these slow, rainy hours don't quietly slip away. Where are you listening from? What time has found you tonight? Here, it's just past 12:30 a.m., rain slipping steady and soft against the kitchen window pane, the scent of wet wood and earth thick and cool in the air. You're standing near the doorway, drawn from bed by the muffled tap of rain and a faint creak somewhere beneath the floorboards. The house is quiet, too quiet for this late hour, and the warm glow from the hallway light spills unevenly into the kitchen, casting long shadows along the worn linoleum floor. You move slowly, steps soft but deliberate, the weight of the damp air settling heavy on your skin. Ahead, the kitchen table is barely visible. Something there, something that shouldn't be, is outlined in the dim light. At first, you think it might be a coat draped over a chair, but as you near, the shape solidifies, unmistakably human. Someone is sitting there, hunched forward, still and silent. You freeze, heart mindful and steady, hands brushing the door frame as if to anchor yourself. The air smells sharper here. Wet fabric, old paper, and a faint metallic tang, undercut by the cold breath of night, slipping in around the edges of the cracked window. You listen closely. No whispered footsteps, no rustling, just the quiet tick of the wall clock and the steady hiss of rain pattering against the glass. Your fingers move automatically to the phone on the counter. The screen glows. 12:31 a.m. No signal. You try dialing the local emergency number, but the call won't connect. The cabin feels closed in now, the familiar space shrinking with each heartbeat. You glance back toward the table. The figure hasn't moved. No one answers your silent presence. You wonder if it's real, if it's someone who slipped in unnoticed, or if it's something else, woven from the night and the storm. You reach out slowly, thoughts sharp and tangled, scanning the empty chair across, and the shadows bowed low beneath the ceiling beams. Outside, rain slips from the eaves, pooling on the porch with a steady rhythm that soothes and unsettles all at once. Somewhere distant, a branch scrapes the side wall, dry and deliberate. Your breath grows shallow, and for a moment, you question what you're sure you saw, and what might have only been a trick of the light. A mind caught between wakefulness and dream. You step back from the room and close the door softly behind you. The figure stays where it sits, still and silent in the low light, fading just beyond reach of your gaze. In the quiet that great nights bring, when the line blurs between what's known and unknown, you ask yourself, how often do we share these spaces alone, yet never really alone? And when the storm finally passes, what shadows remain waiting in the corners we never look? Before we dive in, go ahead and press like if you're listening with me tonight. Maybe subscribe so these quiet moments don't slip away. And I'm curious, where are you right now? What time is it where you are? For me, it's just after 4 a.m., and rain is pattering steadily against the side window of this old cabin you're in. You pull your sweater tighter around your wrists as a cold breeze snakes beneath the slightly open window. The smell of damp leaves and wet dirt coils in with the air, fresh but heavy, like the forest outside has been holding its breath all night. The rain isn't fierce, more a soft drizzle at the moment, but persistent, tapping out a whispered pattern against glass and wood. Outside, shadows blur in the low light of a flickering street lamp on the empty road that leads away from here, the road that nobody takes after dark. Your eyes trace the droplets as they gather and race slowly down the glass. You flex your fingers, feeling their chill against the wooden window frame, rough and slick with moisture. You're alone here, the nearest neighbors miles away, and the nearest town a faint cluster of dim lights, swallowed by the storm in the distance. Your phone rests on the tabletop, its screen dull in the low light. You check it anyway. 4:03 a.m. No messages, No calls, no signal bars. The cabin sighs, a soft creak from the ceiling beams as wood adjusts to the sudden dip in temperature. Your gaze shifts past the window, along the side porch where the rain patters steadily and a faint scuffing sound catches your attention. Footsteps? No, more like the scrape of something dragged lightly across weathered boards. You freeze, breath even but shallow, listening as the sound fades, blending into the natural symphony of rain and wind. You rise slowly and move toward the hallway. The wooden floorboards groan quietly beneath your bare feet, the lamp casting small shadows that stretch long and thin. You pass the kitchen, the faucet dripping rhythmically into the sink, another steady tick in the quiet world around you. The back door stands closed but not locked. You reach for the deadbolt out of instinct, twisting it tight with a satisfying click. The rain shifts tone, growing heavier again, pounding softly but steady. You step to the window closest to the back porch and peer outside. The porch light flickers, its bulb struggling against the moisture, and beyond it, the backyard dissolves into a blur of black and silver rain. Something moves there. A shadow? You squint, trying to discern shapes amid the downpour, but the rain steals detail like a veil. Your heart quickens slightly, but you remind yourself. It could be a stray branch shifting, a raccoon checking for scraps. You take a breath and run a hand over your neck, feeling the damp hair cling to your skin. The house feels simultaneously familiar and strange at this hour, every creak and drip exaggerated by the quiet and the storm. Glancing back inside, you note the small comforts that hold you. The soft glow of the reading lamp, the phone on silent, the blanket folded neatly on the couch. Still, the sensation lingers, that tingling awareness of unseen eyes just out of reach, the restless air that carries stories too quiet to catch fully. You step back from the window, the rain now a constant background hum. Somewhere above, in the attic, a faint creak sends a new shiver down your spine. Or maybe it's just the house settling again. You wonder, in this restless night, woven of storm and shadow, what it means to truly feel alone. Is solitude just the quiet between noises, or something waiting patiently in the dark, where we least expect it? If you're here with me right now, settling into the quiet hum of night, go ahead and tap that like button, and maybe subscribe too, just so these moments don't dissolve before you've noticed them fully. I wonder where you're listening from, and what hour has found you. Here, it's barely past 4:40 a.m., and rain is drumming steadily on the back porch roof, a muffled, soothing rhythm that seems to fill every corner of this creaky cabin. You stand by the kitchen window, watching the dark shapes outside soften into shadows behind the sheets of rain. The smell of wet pine and freshly turned earth drifts in through the slightly cracked open window, mingling with the faint, warm scent of coffee you brewed earlier but forgot to drink. Your skin still tingles from the chill that slipped in with the breeze, crawling down your neck and settling in your chest like a quiet warning. There's an old shovel propped up against the wall near the back door, rust speckling its edge, handle worn smooth from years of use. You notice it now, more clearly than before, as if the rain's steady tapping has drawn your attention there. It's always been there, forgotten, an old relic from whoever lived here long ago. But tonight, in this slice of stillness and storm, it feels different, silent but insistent, like it's holding its breath. The porch light buzzes faintly, struggling against the wet air, casting thin pools of orange onto the soaked wood beneath you. You step outside, feet sinking slightly into the damp welcome mat, the cold pressing immediately through the thin soles of your shoes. Rain slips down your jacket sleeves in tiny streams, and your breath fogs in the humid air. Your fingers trail along the handle of the shovel. It's heavier than you remembered. A flicker of something. A shadow? Movement just beyond the edge of the porch? Makes your heart rate quicken. You hold your breath listening. The rain drumming is suddenly louder, impenetrable, except for occasional sharp creaks of wood settling or wind-stripped branches scratching nearby. You glance toward the back door, secure behind you, with its deadbolt engaged and chain strung tight, but you still cannot shake the uneasy feeling that the storm has brought more than water and wind tonight. A sound flickers, faint but distinct, like the scrape of that shovel's metal against the wood planks beneath it. You lean closer, seeking the source. Muddy footprints, fresh and uneven, mark the earth beyond the porch, some crossing straight, others almost half visible beneath the overhang shadows. The rain blurs them quickly, washing away uncertainty, yet your mind clings to each imperfect print like a whispered secret. Inside, the cabin's warm light spills golden onto the porch, a fragile refuge from the dark and wet. You step back in, the door clicking softly behind you, sealing out the night's cold breath. The rain's rhythm fades into a low murmur, the house sighs around you, and the stillness deepens once more. You wonder, as you settle again beneath the glow of the reading lamp and the thick, familiar blanket, what it means to feel watched when no one is there. Is it the presence of something unknown, or just the mind's own shadows playing tricks during long, rainy nights? In the shelter of this quiet space, beneath creaking beams and endless sky, maybe some questions are meant to linger unanswered. If you're here with me now, go ahead and press like, and maybe subscribe, if this slow drip of night and rain feels like something you want to come back to. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? It's just before 5:30 a.m. Here, the air thick with fog pressing softly against the cabin's windows. Rain has eased into a drizzle, each drop a gentle tap against the glass, a steady, quiet pulse beneath the low hum of early morning. You stand by the front window, the cool wood frame rough under your fingertips, watching the world blur as thick fog curls over the empty road in front of the cabin. The scent of wet leaves and damp earth carries in on the breeze, slipping through a cracked open window, filling the room with the familiar smell of a forest waking slowly from its sleep. Outside, the ground beneath the porch is slick and shiny, reflecting the weak amber glow of the lone street lamp down the way. The silence stretches around you, thick, broken only by the soft, rhythmic patter of rain, the occasional creak of the cabin's old bones, and your own steady breathing. Then suddenly, through the fog, you spot headlights. Two pale orbs gliding slowly along the winding road, cutting through the mist like twin searchlights. Their brightness is muted, but moving closer, weaving toward the bend near your cabin. You step back instinctively, shadows slipping across the floor as the headlight beams flash briefly against the front porch. Heart picks up, not from fear so much as surprise, because this road is supposed to be empty at this hour. You check your watch, 5:27 a.m. The glow of your phone screen shows no missed calls, no messages, no signal, same as before. The night has a way of shrinking the world, condensing space and time into this narrow corner of damp air and whispers. The headlights pause at the bend, casting long, ghostly fingers across the fog, then split off into the darker side road that leads past the cabin's back. There's no sound of a motor other than the faint hiss of wet tires on pavement. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoes against the wooden door, the kind of knock that cuts clean through quiet like a slice of cold wind. You tense, listening hard, feeling the hairs along your arms rise involuntarily. A creak follows, faint but clear, like the back door shifting just slightly. You move quietly to the peephole, fingers already fumbling, to check all the locks you bolted hours ago, the deadbolt, the chain latch. The locks click firmly into place beneath your touch. Pulling back, you peer through the peephole. Outside, the fog has thickened, blurring shapes into near nothing. The porch is empty. except for the dark outline of those faint tire tracks, weaving away into the shadows near the back gate. You lean against the door, the rain's soft tap grounding you, steady as a heartbeat. The silence blooms again around the cabin, heavy and full. The headlights are gone, but the space they filled lingers, warm, intrusive, and a little too close. You wonder how many of those quiet moments slip by unattended like that, carved from the shadows between the known and the unknown. Is it the storm that stirs these uneasy turns of night, or something else, watching patiently from the shrouded edges of this place? And in the widening hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath, what keeps you from looking out one more time? If you're here with me now, take a moment to tap that like button, and maybe subscribe if these quiet, rainy nights are where you find yourself most awake. I'm curious, where are you listening from and what hour has settled over you? For me, it's just after 5:50 a.m., and rain is still steady, drawing streaks down the cabin's dusty windows. You've been lying in bed, half awake, when the faint scrape of wood pulls you from the thin edge of a dream. The window next to you catches your eye, rimmed with peeling paint and small cracks. An old attic window that's supposed to be shut tight, but now, caught in the dim amber streetlight bleeding in from the porch below, it's slightly ajar. The pane moves gently, just enough for rain to slip inside, carrying with it the sharp scent of wet soil and moss. You slip your feet onto the cold floorboards, heart steady but alert. The chill of the night air creeps under your sleeves, crawling slowly along your skin. The steady drip of water from the leaking window edge stitches the silence together with a quiet rhythm. You rise and pull open the door carefully, the wood creaking softly beneath your careful touch. Step by step, you make your way down the narrow hallway toward the attic stairs, each footfall light, measured. The old house holds its breath, the rain's low murmur framing every movement you make. The attic hatch looms above, loose from years of use, its worn metal latch glinting faintly in the low light as you reach upward. Your fingers find the latch, fumbling to unlatch it without a sound. The hatch creaks open, and you push it gently, careful not to let it swing loudly. A cool rush of damp air greets you, thick with the sharp smell of old wood, dry dust, and the faint, sweet mustiness of forgotten things. Somewhere above, the rain taps a quiet rhythm on the attic roof, sometimes louder, sometimes almost soft enough to fade into breathless silence. As you peer inside, the beam of your flashlight cuts through the gloom, picking out boxes stacked haphazardly and the strips of old newspaper plastered on the wooden beams. The shadows seem to lean in, stirred lightly by the breeze slipping through the cracked window. Your eyes catch something, a small shape shifted, or maybe just a trick of the light, just beyond the edge of the beam, near the far wall. You draw yourself back, heart thudding just enough to notice. Closing the hatch with slow care, you latch it firmly, making sure it's tight this time. The hallway feels warmer as you retreat, the cozy light from the living room, a stark contrast to the damp chill you left behind. The rain steady again now, gentle on the roof, a soft symphony for the stillness. You check your phone. 5:53 a.m. No signal, no calls, just the slow crawl of time in this quiet, isolated place. You think of how small moments like this, an unlocked window, a faint noise overhead, can wake something in us, a flicker of unrest that lingers long after the sound fades. In the half-light of morning, beneath the endless quiet and the dripping rain, you wonder, what whispers hide up in the attic when no one's listening? And if you were to listen closely enough, would you hear your own name echoed back in the stillness? Before you settle fully into this night with me, take a moment to tap like if you haven't yet, and maybe subscribe. These quiet hours can stretch long, and it's good to have company. Where are you listening from? What time is it? For me, it's just past 2:12 a.m., the rain slipping steadily against the side window, wrapping the cabin in a damp, cool hush. You're lying awake when a sudden chill stirs along your skin, a sharp coolness creeping in from somewhere you can't immediately place. The room smells faintly of wet wood and old fabric, mixed with something sharper, like the cold breath of the night itself pressing into the quiet. The house settles around you, the soft tapping of rain playing steady, filling the pauses between that cold whisper. You throw off the blanket and swing your legs to the floor. The wooden planks beneath your feet are cold but familiar. A slow, steady pulse blooms inside your chest as your bare toes shuffle across the floor. The hallway beckons, dark, narrow, its shadows deep and shifting. You pull the thin light from the nightstand, the soft glow barely scaring the darkness away. Step by step, you move toward the hall, eyes adjusted enough to catch the changes. The faint gleam of a metal latch on the bathroom door, the subtle swell of shadows where the walls meet the floor. The air grows colder here, and you feel it ghost across your nape in a breath, so sudden and close you could almost imagine it was a person exhaling softly behind you. The rain holds its rhythm outside, steady and insistent, but inside the house the silence thickens. You pause, listen closely, and catch the faintest scrape, a soft but deliberate sound near the back door. You remind yourself of the locks, deadbolt clicking, chain latch secured, and quietly move to check. The door is intact, no signs of forced entry, only rain-fringed darkness spilling beneath. Your shadow stretches long along the hall as you return toward the living room, but something feels off. The quiet creak of the attic stair shift, too subtle to be anything but the house settling, yet it prickles at the edge of your mind. The window at the far end is shut tight, but you catch a glimmer, something flickering just beyond, where the night folds into blackened woods. The phone glows from the table. You pick it up, find 2:15 a.m. No signal, no messages. The faint drone of dead space pressing against the cracked walls of this isolated place. Comfort hums in the background. The old heater's soft buzz, the damp blankets folded on the sofa. But it's a fragile dissonance against the low, almost imperceptible stir of the dark. In this moment you realize how thin the line between safety and solitude can be. How bodies listen for sounds that may never have made a noise at all. How the mind fills silence with whispers, patches shadows into shapes. You wonder, when the night breathes too close, when the house sighs and creaks, what is the difference between being alone and being watched? And how much of this vigil is about guarding the house, and how much about guarding yourself? If you're here with me now, take a moment to tap like and maybe subscribe. It helps keep the quiet company coming. Where are you listening from, and what hour has found you tonight? For me, it's just after 2:45 a.m., and rain is falling steadily, a soft, endless drizzle that presses against the cabin's windows, crowding the edges of the dark. You're sitting by the dim glow of a reading lamp, the warmth of its light, a small island in the surrounding shadows. The air smells like wet pine and cold stone, infused with the faint mustiness of old wood and the soft chill that comes with nights where the rain never fully lets up. Your fingers curl around the smooth frame of the chair, grounding yourself in the ordinary, but your mind drifts to that sound, the soft knocking from somewhere below. It's subtle at first, almost easy to miss. A light tap, 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 repeated 3 or 4 times, carried faintly through the floorboards. The basement. You wonder if you imagined it, but then it comes again, more deliberate. A slow rhythm punctuating the quiet, like gentle knocks on an old door. Your breath catches, not from panic, but from sudden alertness. The basement door is at the end of the hallway, a stout piece of wood, with its latch firmly shut. You stand slowly, the floor cool beneath your bare feet, and walk toward it. The rain outside the window now a soft murmur behind the steady patter against the tin roof. Your heartbeat thuds steadily, keeping pace with the knocking sounds inside your mind. You reach the door and pause, breathing evenly as you examine the sturdy lock. The deadbolt is engaged. You had checked it earlier, making sure the cabin was secure before the storm rolled in. Still, the knocking continues, soft but persistent, as if insistently asking for attention. You hesitate, fingers resting lightly on the cold metal of the handle. Behind you, the quiet shuffle of rain through the pines blends with the faint hum of distant thunder. Your phone lies on the nearby table. You glance at it. 2:47 a.m. No signal. A blank message screen. Calling for help isn't an option. You're alone here, miles from other homes, wrapped in a cocoon of wet cold and shadow. The knocking stops abruptly, replaced by silence thick enough to press against your skin. Your ears strain, picking up the faint drip of water from a leaky gutter outside, the distant rustle of wind through the branches. You reach for the chain latch, clicking it securely into place, and test the deadbolt again, tight and sure. Turning away slowly, you notice muddy footprints near the back door. Wide, indistinct, half washed by the rain. You hadn't heard any footsteps on the porch. The air feels heavier now, the rhythm of your breath echoing louder in your chest. The house creaks softly around you, the kind of sound that's both familiar and strange in the stillness. You wonder, as you settle back into the warmth of the living room, what the knocks were meant to say. Were they merely echoes of a restless storm, or something else lying just beneath the quiet? In this long night filled with rain and shadow, which is harder to face, the silence, or what waits patiently on the other side? Before we begin, take a breath and settle in. If you haven't yet, tap like and subscribe to keep these quiet moments alive. Where are you listening from? What time has found you tonight? Here, it's just after 1:45 a.m., and the rain is drumming gently against the window, steady but soft, weaving a calm tension through the air. You're drawn away from the warm glow of the living room light by a flicker on the driveway, brief, like a shadow, moving between the drifting sheets of rain. The smell of wet asphalt and pine needles reaches you through the cracked window, sharp and clean, the night air cool against your skin. Your breath catches as your eyes fix on the driveway's edge, where something shifts beneath the umbrella of a skeletal tree. Step by step, you move closer to the window, feet silent on the cold floorboards. The rain's steady patter forms a steady backdrop, broken only by distant thunder, soft and rolling like a slow warning. Outside, a shadow lingers, elongated, vague, and just beyond reach of the porch light's muted glow. No headlights, no engine noise, just the absence of sound, thick and pressing. Your fingers tighten around the window frame as you scan for more detail. The shape is too tall, too still to be an animal, but it doesn't move quickly either. You lean in slightly, catching the faintest shimmer of rain sliding off a hooded figure standing at the far edge of the driveway. The wet jacket clings eerily, droplets tracing slow rivers down fabric darkened by the storm. Heart steady but alert, you reach for your phone, screen lighting up the dim room with a pale blue glow. 1:47 a.m. No signal. That familiar pulse of isolation sinks in, compounded by the strange presence just beyond the glass. You remind yourself to breathe, slow and measured, ears straining for any sign of footsteps or movement beyond the muted sound of rain. The figure remains perfectly still, a silhouette against the watery darkness, and for a moment, you wonder if the storm itself is playing tricks, weaving the shape out of shadow and soaked leaves. Then a soft, singular knock, barely audible over the rain, taps against the wooden edge of the porch, deliberate and quiet. Your hand moves almost instinctively to the door's deadbolt, twisting it, until you hear the satisfying click of the lock engaging. You check the chain next, sliding it into place slowly, mind racing through safety measures you hadn't wanted to consider this night. The knocking stops. Peering once more through the peephole, the figure has vanished, leaving only the rain's endless rhythm and your own breathing as company. Outside, the storm carries on, washing the world clean, or hiding things beneath its steady cloak. You pull back from the door and settle again into the uncertain warmth of the cabin, the steady noise of rain, a thin shield against the dark. You wonder how often strangers pass close in these quiet patches of night, and if the questions they leave behind have answers at all. In these moments, is it the shadow we fear, or the space between shadows that never quite settles? Before we settle into this moment, take a breath and tap like if this quiet night's company feels right. Maybe subscribe too, so these evenings of rain and shadow don't drift away alone. Where are you listening from? What time has the night drawn you in? For me, it's just past 3 a.m., and rain traces steady rhythms on the cabin's weathered back door. You're standing in the kitchen, the scent of damp wood and earth thick in the air, mingled with the faint hint of old pine from the walls. The steady patter of rain outside is a lullaby and a warning, pressing soft and relentless against the glass. Your skin still buzzes gently from the slight chill climbing in, through cracks you hadn't noticed before, a cold breath where warmth should have held faster. The hallway is dim but familiar as you move toward the back door, the floor creaking quietly beneath your careful steps. You've checked the locks before turning in, but something pulls at you now, a flicker of unease you don't want to ignore. The door is closed, but you squint into the dark beyond the glass panel and catch a glimpse that doesn't match the rain's dance. Fresh, wet soil disturbed just outside. You reach out and touch the doorknob. It's cool, slick with condensation, the kind of cold that reminds you how the outside presses inward when the night's long enough. You lean closer, eyes scanning the muddy threshold beneath the porch light's weak glow. There, a footprint. Not old, not faded, just pressed into the soft dirt like a quiet message left in the dark. Your pulse quickens. The shape is unmistakably human, but irregular, uneven. Dirt smudged along the sole, where the treads worn thin. Steps leading away from the door, shallow, scraping lightly on the gravel beyond, fading slowly into the deeper shadows of the backyard. You follow them with your gaze, each one a silent echo beneath the rain's constant rhythm. You step back inside, your breath a slow plume in the cold air. Fingers reach instinctively for the chain on the door, sliding it into place with a click that sounds far too loud in the stillness. Then the deadbolt, the secondary lock. Every mechanism you trained yourself to rely on snaps shut. The rain falls harder now, drumming on the roof like a heartbeat speeding beneath your own skin. Behind you, the house creaks, the wooden bones settling, but the sense of weight outside presses in, a quiet pressure balance between the storm and the unknown. You glance at your phone on the counter. Screen bright in the dark, 3:05 a.m. No signal. The damp air muffles even the familiar hum of connection. You try the emergency number. No answer, the call cutting out after a single ring. You pull the curtains closed slowly, the fabric heavy in your hands. The muddy footprints remain out there, just beyond your sight but impossible to forget. For a moment, you're not sure if the wet earth stains your mind, or if the night itself has seeped inside. The rain continues its endless song, and you sit back down, wrapping yourself in the thin warmth of the room. Questions drift through the thick air. Had those footsteps been there all along, silent beneath the rain? Or were they something new, tracing their path just now in the storm's relentless fold? In that crossing of shadow and sound, of what we see and what eludes us, you wonder, when the night leaves traces we can't explain, are we watching closely, or is something, somewhere, watching us?